We've seen a turn in rice, maybe other markets. Who knows? Let's check it out and we'll talk about it right now in this video. So, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday again. Futures Brizio here, 2:20 p.m. Agricultural markets will be shutting down for the week here in a few minutes. And so I think it's a good time to do a quick review. I did make a video mid-session this morning. I didn't think I was going to do another one, but not that there's been a ton to report, but I did want to highlight a couple of things, and I thought it would be good just to go into the weekend. So make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and any questions or comments, leave them down below, and we'll jump right in. So we'll start with corn because there's really nothing to report with corn. Nothing's really changed since this morning. You can go back and watch my video this morning. Again, I did take a trade this morning here that filled this gap. Then I got out of it. And then we have snapped back and done nothing the rest of the day. But, you know, it's still moving sideways underneath this prior support zone. So we'll have to see next week if the sellers are able to continue to push this lower. And if so, this next box down here would be probably the next target. And again, we still have a swing high sitting up here a little bit higher above this first box that would have to be breached, in my view, to negate this current downtrend. Okay. Although, again, seasonally, we're still technically in a time period where corn prices should be going up. But, you know, of course, that's a broader view. So in the meantime, we have these shorter term trends on these shorter time frames that are playing out. And this happens to be down. Doesn't mean that the seasonality is wrong. Although there's no guarantee that those play out every single year the same. You look at a seasonality chart, they're always going to be ebbs and flows in some years where it is completely, the price goes completely 180 degrees against the seasonal flow. So that's why you can't use anything in a vacuum. And I did look, as I mentioned this morning, commitment of traders, at least as of right now, recording of this video, the CFTC website shows data through September 30th. So that does give us back 1 week. This used to say the 23rd. But still, this is useless until they bring it up to date. So we'll see over the weekend if they update it any closer to where we are now. In the meantime, again, you can't use COT data for anything, so which is unfortunate. All right, so that's it for corn. And let's look at hogs now. Hogs, again, no change from today, from earlier. Again, just sitting at the bottom of this daily range right here. Although, as I also said this morning, we've had multiple hits on the lower part of this range, which to me suggests that sellers are still fairly strong. And I wouldn't be surprised if we blow through this zone next week. Let me just touch it up a little bit to cover the wick on this candle. I know it might be hard to see, but there was a wick right here on this November 18th candle. I just wanted to tighten up. So, of course, we do have lower price sitting below here, so it could go lower. But as long as we remain inside of this trading range, I'm not interested. And, you know, kind of the key swing is up here. I wouldn't even consider this to be a swing high because it didn't lead to a new low. Price is just basically range bound. So nothing to do with hogs. We'll see what it does next week. And, okay, so soybean meal, basically most of the grains other than corn have tried to make a little bit of a bend back higher again. Soybean meal here has reacted off this 1 hour zone and has turned a little bit higher here at the end of the session. The market is now closed. So you can see up here, market's closed. Oops, well, it's not showing it, but it is closed for the weekend. So we did chop around this zone. Then we did put in a little higher low here around 1 o'clock. This is a 15-minute chart. And, you know, through the session close, we kind of came back here to some previous resistance area. So, you know, we'll see next week if this has a continuation higher. Again, we do have this level sitting up here. So any solid resumption of the longer term seasonal uptrend that we saw in this market, if we go out to the higher time frame, any resumption of this overall major uptrend would have to breach this high up here for me. But certainly there could be counter trend trades on the way up. We do have obviously a really big imbalance with this candle. So, anyways, markets close. I didn't trade this today. Not really much to do. So we'll see what happens next week. I suspect we'll probably see a little bit more upward move. Whether we get to some technical level here and it rolls over and keeps going down, I don't know. Nobody really knows, but we do have this low, which could act as resistance over here, previous support, and that would be right in the middle of this imbalance candle. So that would be a place to look for it to turn. If not, then, the next area to watch would be like this zone right here, which is basically just encapsulating this last little bullish candle here before this big drop. So, I would say either something like this as a potential zone for price to turn and go back down. And if it gets through there, then, then obviously we'll target this high. And then if it breaks that, then, I would consider it to be in an upturn. But either way, I'm probably not going to trade this until we get past this area, either rolling over and coming back down, or if this area fails and it rolls over and starts coming back down. But I don't really foresee myself taking any long positions here because I just think it's not proven that we're heading higher here. We certainly could just have some higher highs put in here only to have it eventually roll over. Okay, so we'll watch it next week. This won't take too long to play out. I mean, we could potentially, find out in one trading day, basically, maybe 1-2 trading days at most, to see what this wants to do. And then we'll have an idea going forward. All right, Canadian dollar. Again, kind of same story. A little bit of a bounce off this 4-hour zone. We had this spike down early this morning on the first 4-hour candle. And we did react off there, but we're still underneath this resistance area. So even though price had a strong push off of here with this engulfing candle, nothing else happened after that. There was no follow through, and the next 3 hours, it just moved sideways. This market is still open, but it is Friday, and I wouldn't expect to see anything else. I mean, the volume is pretty much gone out of the market, which is why you just see this sideways. So you can see I've got these 2 yellow lines. This is basically the range it's in right now. So until we in my view, until we kind of roll out of one of these zones, and either get some really strong bearish action rolling over back down to consider taking any new short positions, or a solid clean break above this high to switch directions to the upside. But as long as it's inside this range, it's not anything I'm really looking to trade. And then if it does go higher, we do have another zone here on the 4-hour chart sitting up here. I'm not going to draw it out right now just to keep the chart clean, but there is another potential management level up here. But, there's some room in between there to trade it between, here and there if it gets through there. Soybean oil, again, pretty much the same story. Reaction off this 1-hour zone. We do have higher time frame zones still sitting below here. But again, to me, this is kind of the area to breach before I would consider an uptrend to be reestablished here. But there could be certainly be upside momentum back up here. We have a large imbalance candle here, so maybe price works up and gets somewhere back up into this area. And then, we'll have to see what happens. So I would say, soybean oil, it's Friday. It's hard to say, how it would have turned out on a regular trading day. But at least in the short term, we'll probably see some upside move next week. How far it goes, I don't know. This would kind of be the area I'd be managing against. But, I wouldn't be surprised to see it continue to creep higher And then as it gets up between the inside of this bearish candle and this level up here is when we'll have to see what it does beyond that. So you either sit on your hands and wait, or or look for an entry here and just manage it. If it rolls over to the downside and it looks like real good bearish momentum comes in, whenever that happens, then this area down here would be the next target back in the zone. And so, of course, the further it pushes up, if it does roll over, the better risk to reward ratio we get. So I would like to see it push higher, regardless of whether this turns and goes lower again. But especially if it turns and goes lower, I want to see it get up here. I have a lower risk, a better reward ratio for it to turn over, and then this would be my target back somewhere in this inside of this box. So, all right, repeating the same pattern, same exact thing with soybeans. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. This is very much like soy meal and soy oil. Reaction out of a zone. Wouldn't be surprised to see this again creep higher. And then, this is almost the exact same scenario as soybean oil. Bearish candle here, structure level. This is a 1 hour level, so not as solid as a 4 hour level, but it's still pretty good. So, I'll wait and see if we finally get some bearish rollover. If not, I'm probably not going to take any long positions though. But I might consider shorts if we hold under this area and get some bearish price momentum back down. Because if this does come back down, it's going to go right through this box. Not going to bounce like this again, in such a short term. It'll just go right through it this time. So, in my opinion. So, but for an uptrend, we would have to get through this area solidly to turn this thing higher. So, all right. And last but not least is rice. Very interesting move on rice. Now, again, we still have not broken any structure, but you can see we had a very impulsive move, much more so than what we see in the soy complex, coming out of this zone that I've been highlighting for like a week now, going to the weekly chart again. Now, zooming out long term, that doesn't look nearly as impressive, of course, because this is a weekly chart. But this is, either way, this is pretty bullish. Now you can see price came up here, and what do we see on the chart? A little tiny gap right here, which technically was already filled. But you can see price went right to that and then started selling off. The market, of course, again is closed for the day. So, hard to say, but we do have structure level. I certainly would not be taking any longs from here. I did take a long. I got out of it pretty quick. I left about half of it on the table. I'll show you right here. This is the long I took when it broke this, when it pulled back here. This was at, what time was that? This is my account. So 1700, that's like 3.5 hours. So this is like noontime. So around noontime, it put in this higher low and started going out. And I got out here because I was looking at this area here being previous support, now acting as resistance. And price did react off there, but then it shot higher, and I missed this. I wasn't even looking at the chart. After this trade closed, I just said I'm not trading it anymore today. But I made a quick couple $100 on that trade, and that was it. But I can't. TradingView, my trading on TradingView, I think I told you guys this is for my funded account, and the company I use for my funded account does not have rice as a tradable asset. So if I want to trade rice, I have to do it on my personal account, which is the one I showed you. That's my MetaTrader on my own broker. So, and I usually do, mirror the trades. If I take it on here, I'll take it on my MetaTrader, but not always. Sometimes I take some there and not here. It just depends on how I feel about the trade in general. So, but rice, I can only trade on my personal account. So, but you can see we came up here, filled this gap. I guess you can say again, the gap might not mean anything at this point. But again, we are still technically in a downtrend, and we have seen some pretty mighty pullbacks in this market. I mean, you look at this one, this low is put in. Look at this pullback. I mean, this is super bullish. I mean, not a lot of huge blue candles, but still look how far it went. And then finally it broke down. So again, I think you have to say this area right here is where we would have to, at a minimum, breach this area for me to consider this uptrend over. And remember, like I said, this uptrend's been going on for a year and a half. So to try to pick a bottom here is risky at best. But that was a short-term trade, and I fully expected it to be short-term. So we have this zone here, and then, we certainly have this one here, which isn't that far away. So, somewhere price might actually even get, you could even draw this as a rectangle, I suppose, between this high, let's call it right there, just basically what those two yellow lines showed. So that's kind of the zone I'm looking at to see what price does if it gets up here inside of this box and then starts to roll over again. Maybe we roll over from here, but we would have to clear these highs above this top yellow line, the edge of this box, before I would consider the downtrend to be over, okay? And we might get that. I don't know. Obviously not today. Market's closed. Don't know if we'll even get it next week. Again, it's Thanksgiving next week. We're going to have lighter trading volume and only a partial week to even trade. So, but this was an interesting first move, and it's certainly, had the most bullish price action on rice that we've seen since this last big pullback here. Look at this, is a giant candle right here. The last time we had a candle even remotely this big was over here. But what did that do? That led to a new downtrend. So that's why I'm saying you can't pick a bottom on this, on a market that's been going down for so long. But the difference is now is that we are at an area on the chart that has drawn a lot of interest in the past. And so at minimum, you will get a reaction off of that, even if it's just, a temporary counter trend move. And that's why I say, I don't just jump in. I did take a long, but I fully expected it to be a short-term trade, which is why I closed it when I did. I could have let it run, obviously, and made twice as much. But I fully anticipated it was going to, and went into that trade thinking it was going to be a short-term trade, day trade anyways. And, it was for me. And so again, unless we breach this resistance zone up here, or supply zone, or whatever you want to call it, this downtrend is still in place. But this is the most bullish it's been in a while when there was follow through. We basically had, technically we had 5 bullish candles in a row, but 3 of pretty decent size. And that's, we haven't seen that in a while. But again, to be real, looking back on the charts, even when we've seen this bullish momentum, it has eventually led to a selling opportunity to come back and make new lows. And so, when you've had a downtrend going for a year and a half, you have to just respect that downtrend until it tells you otherwise. And, people try to pick tops and bottoms, and once in a while you might be right. And you look like a hero, you look like a genius, like you got it all figured out. And then the next time you do it, you get slaughtered, because the trend wasn't over. So if a long-term trend is going to start forming and setting up, something that's going to go on for more than a couple of days or a week or 2 weeks, you'll have plenty of time to get in. So to me, that's why I'm not going to rush trying to buy this market, at least certainly not from where it is now, for any long-term trade until we clear this area, because this is an area that's proven to be, a place on the chart where the sellers are strong. And you have to assume there's still going to be sellers in here. People that are long right now may have take profit levels sitting up here. That will drive price down. But, if the uptrend really is starting to form, that selling will be temporary and it'll be limited and muted. It'll be small candles and it won't really make much progress to the downside. It'll just fall back a little bit and then boom, it'll pop higher with a big bullish candle. And then that the selling there was just profit taking for retail traders, and there's no real selling there. But on the other hand, if you get in there and you get a big bearish candle form and it starts taking out market structure, then you've probably got the downtrend continuing. So we'll wait and see what happens next week. But I did want to highlight rice as something that could potentially be turning. But we've seen bounces off of key levels on just about every one of these assets today. Whether that means anything or not, time will tell. But that's how I see it. So anyways, guys, that's it. That will be my last video. And because I made this one, I doubt I'll make one on Sunday. So I'll talk to everybody next week. I hope you have a great weekend. Questions, comments, leave them down below. Subscribe to the channel and smash that like button on your way out. Appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon. Have a great week.